I'm going to talk about Bugs Bunny Lost in Time for the next 14 minutes. Having grown up on Looney Tunes, it makes sense that one of the games I have really fond memories for was Bugs Bunny Lost in Time on the PlayStation. I actually love going back for this game since I loved it so much, despite the fact that the reception at the time was far from favourable in some cases. Like, Jesus, CVG, 1 out of 10? Surely you didn't think the game was that bad? You hated the game that much? The reviews appear to hold mixed reception, but that's the thing. I distinctly remember liking the game a lot, but that could be nostalgia. So without further ado, let's take off those rose-tinted glasses and see what this game really is. See, the premise of the game was that Bugs, having made a wrong turn along the way, stumbles across a time machine that zaps him to different times in the point where he's lost in time. See? Name drop. In order to make his way back to his own time, he has to collect clocks. For whatever reason, it's actually pretty identical to the plot of the Back to the Future movies where Marty has to collect clocks in order to get back to 1985. And as he collects clocks, Bugs winds up adventuring into different time eras, starring some pretty iconic Looney Tunes characters such as Elmer Fudd, Yosemite Sam and Marvin the Martian. And it's not like it was a half-arsed reenactment of these characters with subpar voice actors for the game. A lot of prominent voice actors were involved in the game, such as Billy West, who voiced a lot of the Bugs Bunny media from that era, and even Joe Alaskey, who voiced a plentiful amount of characters after Mel Blanc's passing. Heck, they even had June Foray back to voice Witch Hazel, which I thought was pretty awesome. They clearly didn't skimp on the voice acting really. But what about the gameplay? At Bugs' disposal, he runs, he kicks, he sneaks, he stacks crates like a Tesco worker, he throws crates like a disgruntled Tesco worker, he has it all. He also exhibits the uncanny ability to use his ears as helicopters because cartoons, and he can even break his neck off the ground. Incredible. However, while these build up on the main basis of the game, there are a few different types. For example, there are levels where you can explore as normal, or there are levels where you can even ride vehicles or face against various bosses. However, the end goal is always the same. You're looking to snag two of the most prominent collectibles in the game, clocks and golden carrots. Clocks are absolutely the most important aspect in the game, as not only is it the end game goal to collect 120 out of the possible 124 clocks to return to the present, it also impacts the levels and time eras that Bugs can explore. As Bugs collects more clocks on his journey, he unlocks more time eras and subsequently the levels that are contained in each area. Now, the first area that's accessible to him is Nowhere, where he meets with Marilyn Monroe, a wizard who teaches him how to return back to his time. Yeah, that's right, his name is Marilyn Monroe. Absolutely beautiful. Nowhere acts as a tutorial for the game. They'll notice signs in the area that once interacted with provide an explanation of the game mechanics before allowing the player to attempt it themselves to try and snag a golden carrot. Which brings us to our second most prominent collectible in the game, golden carrots. Sprinkled throughout the game are an abundance of golden carrots, 333 to be exact. Golden carrots are pretty eye-catching and look pretty important, which is unfortunately misleading because they are not in fact very important and serve very little purpose other than to access 3 bonus levels, which essentially requires a total of 250 to access all 3 of these levels, making the remaining 83 golden carrots worthless. Speaking of worthless, what would a Bugs Bunny game be without an abundance of normal edible carrots? Normal carrots act as both Bugs' health and currency in Lost in Time. Although, unlike games like Croc where the titular character drops his health when hurt, Bugs will instead lose a little health from his meter represented by carrots. If he takes damage, Bugs can pick up a few carrots to restore his health back to normal, and fortunately there are a lot of those lying around. However, if Bugs instead picks up a carrot when his health is full, he'll instead store it in a wee pouch somewhere, adding to a counter up to a number of 99 carrots. Now with 99 carrots, Bugs can take these to each of the era's hubs and purchase a golden carrot, which you probably won't need to do since that's essentially just 5 golden carrots, whereas there's like 333 to get in the game and you'll need 250 of those. However, once you buy all golden carrots, the regular carrots become useless as currency and instead only act as health. Speaking of health, once Bugs loses all of his health, or falls into a pit or water, he dies. And if you're like me, Bugs will do that a lot, with a mixture of some awkward platforming where he'll jump by himself at the end of a platform, and myself just being garbage at video games. However, unlike a lot of games at the time, Lost in Time does not utilise a life system. Instead, if Bugs happens to meet his untimely end, he'll instead respawn nearby at either the start of the level, or a checkpoint indicated by Merlin's floating hat with no penalty. Returning back to nowhere, Bugs needs to complete several tasks in order to receive golden carrots. This involves the main basis of gameplay, areas such as using items, fighting enemies and sneaking past them.
What was that noise?
Bugs needs to complete each of these tasks to collect golden carrots. Once all are collected, Merlin will reward him with his first clock, thus unlocking the first time era for Bugs to explore, the Stone Age, which features a caveman Elmer Fudd as the villain, and our first real level to explore. Progression through the game is not completed through completing each area linearly. In order to unlock subsequent levels, Bugs needs to collect clocks and golden carrots with the amount being displayed at the level entrance, as well as in the pause menu. For example, to unlock the next level, an Elmer Fudd boss fight, Bugs needs to collect 3 clocks. However, true to its name, Bugs is indeed lost in time, as levels begin to spring up across different eras. There are 4 other eras for the player to explore. The Pirate Years with Yosemite Sam, which was an unintentional spelling mistake I made originally as I typed up the script, but I'm keeping it in. The gangster-themed 1930s with Rocky Muggsy with levels themed around bank heists and car chases. There's also the medieval times where Witch Hazel acts as the respective Looney Tunes villain, and finally, a space-themed level featuring Marvin the Martian. Now while there are a few Looney Tunes characters, there are a lot of missing characters. I mean, where's Tweety Bird? Where's Porky Pig? However, there's a lot of variety in these settings and I loved exploring it. Rather than complete each era one at a time, the game instead unlocks levels in a certain order through the game. Whereas the Stone Age is the first era, one of the later levels in this era requires a majority of the clocks in the game at around 80 required. Bugs will unlock each era by collecting required clocks for the era's first level. 1 clock for the Stone Age, 5 clocks for the Pirate Years, 15 clocks for the 1930s, 30 clocks for the medieval period, and 40 clocks for the final area. Dimension X. You'll notice that only 40 of the 120 needed clocks are needed to unlock all eras, meaning you unlock all eras around a third of the way through the game. As mentioned, each era contains a famous Looney Tunes villain and with them also contains many references to past Looney Tunes cartoons. In fact, the overall plot of Lost in Time is based upon the cartoon Nightmare Hare.
Ah, impossible. Couldn't be him.
All right, Merlin. Giddy up. Get along now.
No, impossible. Couldn't be him.
All right, Merlin. Giddy up. Get along now.
Each level typically follows the theme of the era being played, although there are some exceptions. For example, there are 3 bonus levels, one of which is dedicated to the Rapid Fire Classic, which is where the whole Duck Season Wabbit Season shenanigans transpired. We had to hit more signs than Daffy in a minigame in order to convince Elmer Fudd that it was duck hunting season, not Wabbit. As Bugs collects more clocks, he unlocks more levels. Some of these range from different types, such as a level based around riding on a minecart, or some where you have to race against time. A lot of the time, the clocks aren't particularly difficult to gain, so not a big deal, right? just collect some clocks and move on to the next level? Well, no. While the first few levels in the game are pretty linear and easy to 100% complete, things begin to get a bit more difficult starting in the 1930s, where the second level needs special requirements. Magical abilities. Throughout the game are little platforms that Bugs can interact with, although he will be told he needs a magical ability to do so. There are actually 4 magic powers that Bugs can unlock: the super jump ability, the music ability, the hover ability, and the open sesame ability. Each of these magical abilities can be obtained from Merlin in the medieval times, and once received will allow Bugs to explore previously impossible to reach areas. This means that the player will backtrack to a few older levels to knock off some hidden clocks and carrots. However, that also acts as a somewhat hindrance, and I'll explain why. In a few select levels, Bugs needs to collect Acme boxes ranging between 5 and 10. For the first few levels to include them, they're pretty easy to find, but that changes when we reach the levels that also include magic ability requirements. Some Acme boxes may not be possible to find on the first playthrough, which means that you have to spend a lot of time hunting for an Acme box, only to realise you've been had, and they're hidden behind a contextual button press. While it's not a big problem, it is annoying that when you leave a level, you lose progress on the Acme boxes you spent ages hunting for. The magic abilities don't particularly impact much in the way of gameplay. Whereas games like Rayman and Crash Bandicoot 3 provided new abilities to use to impact the gameplay, the magic abilities found in Lost in Time serve as simple ways of opening new paths, which isn't very fun or rewarding. Likewise, they also seem to be simply there for the sake of padding the game out more. The player will not receive their last powers until they collect 73 clocks, more than halfway through the game. I also somewhat believe that some of these abilities were added in hindsight, and the last 2 powers are actually unlocked in the same level, which feels like they just wanted to rush it in somewhere. However, while that is criticism I have for the game, I also don't feel like it really impacted my enjoyment of the game much. Due to being an adult and having the hindrance of a full-time job getting in my way, I decided not to 100% this game, despite only needing a few more clocks. There were still a number of golden carrots I had to collect, but I also decided to check if there was a reward for collecting all of them in the game, and there actually seems to be. If the player collects all 214 clocks and 333 golden carrots, their reward is seeing Bugs relax in your Pismo beach. That's all there seems to be, and I decided it wasn't particularly worth the effort. So realistically, is Bugs Bunny going to be solidified as one of the PlayStation's greatest games? Well, no, it's not exactly the most impressive for that era, but for a children's game, it's still incredibly fun to pick up and play from time to time. There does seem to be the element of padding involved, and the backtracking can be cumbersome, but exploring some of these environments and even experiencing many references to some beloved Looney Tunes characters are an incredibly fun experience that I'd recommend to fans of the series. However, this would be Behaviour Interactive's only foray into Bugs Bunny and the Looney Tunes series, as they would later release a sequel of sorts the following year, Bugs Bunny and Taz Time Busters. But that is a story for another video. Want to make sure you don't miss out on the Bugs Bunny and Taz video when it's released? Then make sure you don't forget to subscribe to Noir Reservoir and click that little bell down there to keep up to date on all future Noir Reservoir videos. Content is typically released as frequently as possible, but I always appreciate likes and comments too. So until next time my friends, I'll catch you later. Bye bye.